But this is the response from Ryan Grimm. Quote, AIPAC gets wrecked in NYC, and Matt Walsh tapes in to try to reframe it in some race war terms. He plays this game where he's critical of Netanyahu, but when it matters, he does the thing most helpful to Netanyahu. What? What the hell does Netanyahu have to do with, we're talking about primary elections in the United States of America. If you don't want Western civilization to be destroyed by hordes of communists who have explicitly said that is their goal, then you're helping Netanyahu.
It's true. That damned Netanyahu, it's all his plans. It's always his plans, no matter what it is. Whether it's whether it's the genocide attacking people in Gaza, or just the false flags of how obviously there would be no attacks on Israel from any of those. It's just that damned Netanyahu. um, I'm starting to officially go back to a kind of a period where I was not so hopeful, and I'm starting to lose all faith in anyone my age or younger. For the most part, not everybody, I guess, but like the vast majority of people, maybe not my age or younger. Just like if you took 20 years in both directions and took those out, that'd probably be the best way to kind of think of it, because those are usually the people that are absolutely the most stupid. I don't know what makes people conclude that you know regardless of whatever your foreign interests are, the politician who you blame for all the things that are wrong in the world must be the one that everyone that you dislike also is trying to secretly promote in their coded messaging. And just the amount of times I have to listen to freaking some stupid, like, that we'll be hearing about some kind of something going on in the world, and it's tragic or it's messed up or everybody's worried, and some fucking Nimrod comes in and is like, "Oh, Netanyahu did it. It's all Netanyahu and AIPAC." Oh, jeez Louise. I'm not. I just like I listened to this podcast, or not a podcast. It was a. I don't think it was live. It was a show. It was Stephen A. Smith's show, and he was trying to do a debate. He's done a few of them so far, and it was. It wasn't particularly. I've heard all the arguments on both sides before. It wasn't really anything new, but one thing that really kind of startled the way that I was thinking at the end, that was just kind of really off-putting, was that because the show is intended to be, because Stephen A. Smith is always, kind of one of the people that are focused on black culture and black people and evil slavery and evil this and evil that happened, and we need to do this to fix all the racism now. Anyway, the leftist on the panel was said a statement I've heard many times, and only from this group. It was that, well, I'm black first above all else. And wait a minute, most people who, at least most Americans that I know, like, consider themselves to be above everything else. Maybe Christian or whatever their religious faith is, and then American. So I can understand the religious faith, but everyone almost, first and foremost, after that would definitely jump to American, if you're an American citizen, because it's a very, very extremely high privilege to be an American citizen. And I guess if you're black, you, yeah, I guess it's more exciting to be black, except that's the reason why everything that's ever wrong happens to you. Um, so, yeah, I mean, first of all, I don't like the way of thinking. It's very tribalistic. It completely removes all semblance of any chance of finding common ground right off the bat. Would you value your race above the country that you belong to? It's like, it kind of tells me that you're kind of not concerned about all Americans, and you're not concerned about your fellow American. You're concerned about your racial group, no matter what they're like. It doesn't matter. They could be a group of some of the most rude, mean. Like I've said it before, and I'll say it again, man. Like it's a prison mentality, and I'm not trying to draw the correlation with you know, the insinuation there, but just it's true. What I'm saying is like there's no getting around it. The way that you're segregated in prison by default, whether you like it or not, when you get into prison, you are going to be segregated by race. That's just the way prison life is enforced. Um, and if you don't, as I've said before, you're going to end up getting your ass kicked if you're lucky, and it's going to be a very, very hardcore ass whooping by hardened fucking prison gang banging fucking hardened criminals. Very hardened criminals. More likely than not, though, they're going to fucking just murder you. um, Prison gangs are they're not as like, well, I take that back. I actually haven't followed the most recent events in like prison culture because um, like I said before, I had a family member who was in for quite a long time, and when he was released, I still followed like kind of most newsworthy events from prison related news, but not like I did when I was directly had somebody that I knew very closely that was doing a long stint of time. So um, I was really interested in just understanding about prison culture and understanding the dynamics between prisoners, prison gangs, the guards, the um, uh, corrections officers, and in general, just the staff that are there, and some of the different levels of prisoner, depending on the level of the prison, of course, too. But we're talking like maximum security prison and the ones for the most high level offenders in most cases that have a life sentence or a near life sentence or a potential life sentence, um, meaning they have possibility of parole after X amount of time, but there's no guaranteed release date. So anyway, that was just a side note, but it rubbed me so much the wrong way because they did ask him. Well, um, it was Officer Tatum that was it was the opponent in the debate, and he did kind of bring that up. It's like, why you're black first before you're American? You're black first, and um, the guy defended it. I mean, he defended it up and down, and I'm saying, okay, well, um, I see why you. I mean, you just like being a victim. It seems like you like the status of being in this class that can claim victim, even though once again, as we talked about in the last episode, most people know nothing about history, nothing about Black history, nothing about American history, period, and it's not as cut and dry as a lot of people seem to believe it is. Not to mention the fact that, as I've also talked about before, there was a far more serious and far longer running and far more brutal, for that matter, slave trade that was going on throughout the Arab world from the different regions of Africa where they would buy slaves from tribal leaders. And uh, in those cases, it was actually the British, the actual British government and later the United States that were working to end the practice altogether worldwide. So, um, but of course, we're the hubs for white supremacist groups in the world. So, anyway, I'm not gonna scattershot anymore. I'll try to focus because there's a lot to talk about today. I am freaking, like I said, I'm oh boy. That intro clip, it was funny. It was funny when I first watched it. I was laughing pretty hard on it, but as I'm watching it again now, I'm kind of like, oh man, that is just why are we doing this? Who are these fucking idiots that always are talking about APAC and Netanyahu? Who are these people, and why is this their go-to? Well, I guess we kind of know, but the best sort of summary I heard finally from somebody who was um, actually a black political commentator. Um, he mentioned that essentially it seems like the view of anyone on the left, far left, is that, yeah, there are Israeli people that are darker skinned. There's Israelis that are lighter skinned. There's Israelis that are Islamic. There are Israelis that are um, uh, obviously Jewish. And there's geez, um, Israelis that are Christian. And there's not really one Muslim country in the region that can say anything close to that. But regardless, what I think was most telling was that his idea was that because on a whole, and when you pick an average Jewish individual, their skin is lighter than a black person's skin that's from Africa or from Central America or South America or different areas around the world where that's just the natural pigment in the skin tone. Um, but uh, if that group is darker than the typical Jewish person, which in most cases you would kind of guess they are, then of course not all, but in some cases they are. In most cases, I would say they are. Anyway, the point is that because of that difference, because one looks more white than the other, well, that's justification to basically consider not just the Jews, but the entire Jewish state, because it's a Jewish state, and because it protects the people of low melanin count. That means that they're an evil apartheid state that is genociding the poor innocent civilians in Gaza and Iran. Anyway, I'm not going to be talking about that, at least this show today. At least the war effort or anything going on in the Middle East, really, except for the effects of some of the Middle East countries and Britain again, because I got a big part of the show I'm going to be devoting to that. But first, we're going to have to discuss this, because this is what's got me really kind of surprisingly feeling kind of mixed. But overall, I don't think this is good, because what has happened based on people who are going so far left that they're just running right past the people, the Ilhan Omars, the AOCs, and the most hardcore left wing uh, anti-conservative lunatics in the party that are willing to jump on board any radical cause, almost, unless it's going to cost them their job. But as long as it's going to help them ensure their job, they'll say anything. Well, we have the situation developing, and we talked about Graham Platner. He's bad enough. I mean, talk about an absolute fucking disgrace. That was bad enough, and it looks like whatever happens there, he'll be the candidate. But now we have three more joining, and as I was trying to figure out the name of this group, I realized, well, there are three. Now there's three. Oh, if you add Platner in, though, there's four. They're the four horsemen. Wait. The four horse people. We got to stay we've got to stay, inclusive in this. So the four horse people of the apocalypse, of America's apocalypse, basically, because um, we're gonna go over some of their quotes. This is a fun bunch. They're really, really, really uh, some fucking sick people. I mean really, really anti. This I've got a nice little compilation prepared, but I also wanted to highlight a couple other things. First of all, um, Ro Khanna, surprisingly, seems like he's such a coward. I think he just jumped on board because he wants to try and save his ass as much as he can before we get to the primaries before we get to the generals. I don't think he's up for re-election right now. I don't think he is. If he is, he's in Silicon Valley. But and it just the speech alone. This one alone makes me angry because he goes on and on. I swear, if there's one term that Democrats have made up in this Trump cabinet that I'm just freaking getting so tired of hearing, and that's Epstein class. I'm so fucking tired of Epstein class being thrown around all the time. But of course, he throws that one in there because it's not like he's part of that class, with the hundreds of millions of dollars from Silicon Valley that Ro Khanna has. But in any case, I remember the days when Ro Khanna was considered, slightly a more moderate sort of Democrat. Those days seem long gone at this point because listen to this little diatribe about how much hope and prosperity will come if we accept this new change into a different kind of Democratic candidate that will be more about the people. Oh yeah, they'll be more about the people, all right, more about the people and seizing the means of production, and AKA then they're gonna come and take all their shit. Anyway, here's that clip because we'll just get this one out of the way. This is just embarrassing for the most part, but at the same time, I can't put anything past him because, interestingly enough, now I've ranted and raved for a long time. I hated Dan Goldman. I thought he was one of the biggest scumbags on Capitol Hill, one of the worst Democrats I would see in the House of Representatives. I hated Dan Goldman. But something crazy happened with Dan Goldman that I can't seem to feel like anything but, man, I don't even know if I wish this on Dan Goldman. I went into a coffee shop, and because, Dan, you could kind of guess by his family history, his background, and the kind of the way he's talked about his sort of upbringing and stuff, that he comes from a Jewish background. It's kind of obvious, and he never really spoke up at all about the conflict in the Middle East. I'd never heard him talk about it at all, and I was guessing, well, he doesn't want to have any part of this because he probably would want, and if he had a backbone, he would have said something like Fetterman, but he doesn't, and he's from New York City, so he can't. And but anyway, as that's happening with Dan Goldman, you got Ro Khanna in California making this gem of an ad or announcement or whatever the hell it is, about how wonderful their new candidates are. So let's play this up. I'll cue it up real quick. I'm gonna try and get through to the video clips as fast as I can today because there's a lot to go through. And man, like things are so heavy right now. It's crazy. Oh, and I'll get to it after this clip. But man, it sucks being gone for so long. I've been trying to put an episode out for 3 out of the 4 days this week, and then we hit today, so finally day 4, I guess I was successful. But man, this really sucked. Where is that clip? Here we go. Okay. All right, so let's do this right here. Okay. And the other thing I hate about the Democrats that are coming out because I think the funniest one to watch is Hakeem Jeffries. He is so trying to balance this whole thing out to make it seem like, oh, we're doing fine. Chuck was probably worse, but he's just pathetic. So it was hard to watch. I'll tell you what he said in a second, but let's see what Ro Khanna has to say because man, Jeffries isn't sounding this enthusiastic. I can tell you that. And if there's one person I'm not feeling in any way like any kind of sympathy for, it's that lunatic. He wanted candidates that were going to win primaries and stop the evil Trump. Well, he got it. I don't know if he'll be speaker because I think they're going to kick him out. But anyway, here we go with this psycho. Let's go.
I want to speak to fellow progressives today. Yesterday was the beginning of a new, bold, strong Democratic Party. Democrats are winning not just in New York, we're winning across this country, in New Jersey, in Michigan, in Maine. The reality is that our platform of a New Deal for our time is resonating. It's a platform that says no to foreign wars, no to genocide, but it's also a platform that says yes. Yes to Medicare for all, yes to child care for all, yes to unions for all, and yes to a tax on billionaires and trillionaires. It turns out that
Oh my God! Yeah. See, I'm sorry. They hate Elon right now. I think a lot of this is in response to Elon. He really has been rubbing them the wrong way with. I mean, there's not one prominent Democrat that is aiming for higher office. It seems like at this point, that hasn't been getting investigated by the DOJ and having all kinds of fucking just bad shit popping up like it's crazy. I just heard Adam Schiff the other day as being urged to like come clean about something that he was discovered. I don't even remember what it was, but if it's going that deep, oh boy. I mean, and that's the thing too is that his Ro Khanna goes around talking about how we need to make things more affordable. We need to make things more equitable for everybody. Okay, all right, asswipe. How about you start with all the Democrats in Congress that are earning way, way, way more than their paycheck? How about we start there? Instead of people, like Elon Musk that actually do hire a ton of people and pay them a good wage. You guys don't hire anybody to do shit. So, where's the production? Where's the productivity? And there's none. There's none. Literally not anything. You guys want to scold President Trump for anything he does, whether it's good or bad, and find scapegoats for everything that is usually mostly your fault, and then go on rants and drive his attention. No, look over here. This is the problem, and I have the solution. It's just, jeez. But go ahead.
you stand up for the working class over the Epstein class, over the billionaire class, the American people respond in huge numbers. But we shouldn't be naive. The oligarchs are going to come after us. Yesterday, Elon Musk spent the morning saying that I should be put in jail or he was going to sue me. Why? Because I stood up to him.
No, because you slandered
We have
him.
a simple message for these oligarchs. Channeling FDR, we should say to them, bring it on.
Well, hey, it's kind of funny about that, Mr. Khanna, Representative Khanna, I'm sorry. These oligarchs, that would include you, Mr. Multimillionaire from Silicon Valley. So I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Well, actually, I do. I do know what you're talking about. You're trying to save your pathetic little bitch ass from exact kinds of things you're advocating for. This is why I can't stand this kind of Democrat, even if they're running around not wanting to talk, not wanting to engage any questions. I at least can acknowledge the fact that, oh, man, they know they're in deep trouble. They don't know what to do. This guy knows they're in deep trouble. He knows there's bad shit going on. So what's he doing? He's kissing the ass of every single extreme leftist that is gaining momentum right now by ranting and raving about the Epstein class and the multimillionaires and billionaires and trillionaires now, which, by the way, trillionaires or trillionaire, because there's only one that I heard of so far. And I know that you're mad at Elon because he, went after you for your bullshit that you put on Twitter about, I mean, you flat out were fraudulently speaking about something that was absolutely not true, and you either, once again, you either knew it was not true and said it anyway, or you had some what I think would qualify as reckless disregard for truth, because and you're not a journalist, but still, I mean, that when there's slander of an individual or slander of a private entity, especially from someone in public office who, if I'm not mistaken, you're supposedly supposed to be a legislator and a public servant, yes? Or no, that whole thing kind of went out the window. And this is why I'm so, if there's one thing that's come out even more intense than under Biden that was bad and is just getting worse, is the legislative branch of the United States. It's been on the downward slide for a long time, but this branch of the government is so broken and so completely out of whack that, really, I don't know what you do, because the only reason, look at Hank Johnson, for fuck's sake. Who the fuck thinks that Hank Johnson is a good representative and is going to be working every day to advocate for policies that will be for the benefit of the people in his state? Does anybody in his freaking state think that's the case? Anybody in his district think that's the case? Or do they think like the rational thing, which is, yeah, he goes there, he sits on his ass, he's too old to do really much of anything before he gets exhausted. But when the cameras are rolling and there's a Republican witness, oh, he'll be there and he will be using every insult he can come up with, try and get his ugly mug on the fucking nightly news on whatever station will feature his dumbass. But I did watch a really funny compilation. I don't know if I told you guys about that, but there's a really funny Hank Johnson moment. Of course, topping out the list is the infamous island of I always forget the island. Which island is it? Damn. I think it's, well, I think it's actually, how do I put it? I don't know. Regardless, the point is that there's nothing that, I mean, they're putting out resolutions that that are trying to get this idea across that President Trump has been engaged in war in Iran for too long. Like, okay, all right, assholes. And what do you suggest? We leave the strait open and let them, sell more oil and enrich their country? I mean, I don't know all the details of the Iran deal. Every day I'm hearing conflicting ideas. Somebody said once again yesterday that Iran made an attack that violated the deal. Somebody said that... I mean, there's all this talk now about all this money, this $300 billion that Trump is telling the officials in Iran that it's going to be coming for them when they, and I just to fuck with the media yesterday. I think he was insinuating that we have no obligation to do that. What are you talking about? So there's definitely some good aspects to it, but there's the ultimate crux of this issue is that you've got Republican Party who are more cowardly than ever because of the fact that, number one, we know for a fact, because the Democrats, whether you're talking about more presentable, I guess I would say, or more like just people that have the right kind of I don't even know I don't even know what to call it. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time describing. There's just so many issues, but like, for example, there's a big meeting between Trump and the Senate Republicans the other day. I'm sure you guys heard about the meeting. There's a big fight between Trump and I can't remember the name of the senator. Obviously, kind of irrelevant, but I think the funniest part was that he was supposed to be going up there to be approving all this aid money to be sent for new housing to be built or something. And when he got there, he told them, "No, I'm not going to sign it. Not until you guys pass the Save America Act." And I love that play. I think that was like that's like peak peak of the mountain Trump on that one, because like once again, it's like when they had Zelensky in the Oval Office. Regardless of what you like or don't like about it, what you can definitely say without question is that what's it called? Jeez. Damn. I don't know how. I don't know where to go from there except for just start. I guess we'll start showcasing the candidates because this is just this is extraordinary, and there's really no. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. So God, I got to finish the story. So so Trump and this one Republican senator are yelling back and forth. Trump doesn't end up signing the bill. Now I did hear this. Little Washington inside information from somebody who was just basically trying to say timeout. This is a media ploy on the part of House Republicans, really, at this point, because they know after 10 days, if there's no veto or there's no signature, the Congress can essentially God, I don't know why can't they. Anyway, whatever the senator's name was, Trump comes out and he says, in front of the cameras, he's all basically that, like, yeah, the Republican Party, we're united. We've got a few people I'm disagreeing with, but for the most part, we're all really united behind getting this work done. It's like, unfortunately, I mean, I listened to Ted Cruz. He's still talking about trying to do the talking filibuster for the Save America Act, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, why don't you do that? If you're so opposed to the breaking the filibuster, which we know the Democrats are going to do if they get back into power, I mean, there's not really any question about that. How about, instead of just letting everything fall apart, how about we actually, give it a try and do the talking filibuster, or just use the nuclear option and fucking just do it anyway? Because I tell you one thing, regardless of what the Senate makeup is or the House makeup is, if the amount of people that are here in this country right now that obviously have malice towards the United States, have nothing but ill will towards America, the American people, our government, our system of government, the Western culture at large, then and then we see one party advocating for this loosening of voting laws around the country. They criticize any state that, like Florida, how dare they not offer, when every ballot that they turn in, which is, I think, pretty damn comparable very easily to the DeSantis sort of achievements. But the fact is that, like, they can never, even though there's no property tax or very limited circumstances for property tax in the state of Florida, even though there's been emergency responders, more police, more public safety programs, more citizen relief programs for situations where they fall on hard times, and they're treating them more like the kind of intended way they were actually rationalized to be presented and working for the American people. But even though they Anyway, so I'm sorry. I keep switching off. So let's see. Continue on with this one because I'm just so fucking furious about these meetings because we're watching around the country as more. I haven't seen any election cycle in my not since I've been paying attention to elections where more incumbents have been getting knocked off than in any other cycle I've ever seen. I've never seen this many, but mostly on the Democrat side. The one that comes to mind, obviously, on the Republican side would be Ken Paxton knocking off John Cornyn. That was a huge freaking. And you can say, yeah, it was about the money. You can say all you want, but even with that being the case, you couldn't put just some schmuck up there who was going to not have any respect for the people of Texas, was not going to have any kind of coherent way of presenting his ideas, and to I don't know. It's amazing watching this whole thing go down this way. 'Cause it is like it's like maybe if this was the kind of thing that was going on in the first Trump administration, it'd be more understandable. But they know what to expect. And I'll get to that in just a second. But let's play. So what should I do next? Should I do the let's see. Actually, there's a decent amount of kind of surprising clips that came out from people that were reacting to this news of new senators and or new candidates for the House and the Senate, and believe it or not, even one of the crazy women on The View actually was pretty sober-eyed about what was going on. Someone else was pretty angry-eyed when that was noticed. Sunny Hostin just was like trying to give this evil eye where she was trying to, I don't know, like, literally pierce her neck with her freaking eye laser or something. I don't know. She looked so freaking furious though, and she was talking about this. It's like, yeah, I think we should talk about the fact that there's a bunch of people who are talk about needing more schools, more services, more actual an actual safe learning environment. How about we start in a time period like the oh damn, didn't get there quite fast enough, but anyway, let's see which. Well, let's just see. Let's play that. We'll play that View clip first. Let's play that one first, and then we'll go from there. Because I was so surprised to see this, and it's not just a sort of passive sort of remark about it either. This is actually noticing the larger issue here, and it's surprising as hell. Because there's also some other. I have some a quote from Senator Kennedy. I have a quote from. Let's see who else was on there. Well, I'm saving the best for last, but yeah, we'll have to get to that when we get to it. But anyway, oh, and I don't know, did I play this one already? Because I don't know when I got this. Oh, that's something else. Never mind. Well, anyway, let's play this clip because this one, like I said, this is kind of a surprising tone for. No matter, I mean, this is Sarah Haynes, somebody who is not one of the big three, whether it's Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Reid, or Sunny Hostin. And then of course, whenever Anna Navarro can drag her fat ass up on stage to take part, then she's another one that is just absolutely just intolerable to listen to. But But Sarah Haynes is one that actually comes off as maybe naive in the way that she doesn't just blindly despise Republicans and President Trump for everything. But that's the kind of thing that's going to get her booted off of the show. So, she's either going to step in line or she won't last too long. It's kind of like the modern Democrat Party in a nutshell. Anyway, let's just get this example going then, because, oh wait, did I go? Yeah, I did. Okay, here we go. If you remember the clip I think I played last week, some of the members were unhappy about poor Carmelo Anthony getting such a harsh sentence. He didn't get life in prison for premeditated murder. And now, by the way, I'm not going to go into it in this episode because it's just really, what's the point? The kid's in jail now at this point. He's going to be there for quite a fucking long time. Anyway, here we go. Let's pull this up. We've got. Is this it? Oh, this is it. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So yeah, because the View is just like leftists in Congress. It's a hive mind, and you do not deviate from the rest of the hive on matters of Democratic Party politics. No, absolutely not. You do not do that. Nope, it's against the rules, or you're gone. No more of you. So Sarah Haynes may be in trouble after this, but we'll see. Anyway, she already, look at this. She already looks sinister as hell, but it's going to get even worse. So here we go.
I just read a fascinating article this morning. It was talking about how one party is ousting anti-Semites and one party is electing them. And I would say that this article raised great points. Avila Cheval, however you say her name, she was at a pro-Palestine rally prompting Hamas and celebrating that on October 8th. Of 2023. These people are not afraid to they don't only not denounce, they actually espouse these beliefs that everything Israel does has influenced our world.
That's not going to fly in New York City.
Well, no, it is right now, actually.
Look at
pro-Palestinian.
Are you kidding me? Are you see how out of touch she is? What? I'm sorry. Who just elected the mayor who won't denounce the globalized intifada? What's that? New Jersey, Washington, Nebraska. No, it was New York. That's right. It was New York. So this talk about you don't think that New York will ever get that angry? Sorry, New York has been ground zero for staging again. It's kind of a slap in the face, to be honest, because that's literal ground zero where we were attacked by these fucking lunatics, and yet here they are wiping their ass with the flag, or they might as well be with what they say all the time. They just essentially they want the country destroyed, pure and simple. They want the country weakened, demoralized, and prepped for toppling. Because that's been their goal the whole time. They just have had people who have been operating with very high level of patience. But here we go. She's about to catch the evil eye. You ready? The evil eye's coming. This is one of those ones that could destroy heaven and earth potentially. If it was,
it was on October 8th.
October
8th, the only thing that had happened is that Israel had been attacked and people had been brutally murdered and raped. And so on October 8th, I don't think there needed to be rallies murdered and raped. And so
oh, jeez, man. Oh, man, if looks could kill, we'd all be dead. Jesus Christ. Look at that. She's like, how dare you? How dare you say these things? There's a genocide going on. Jeez. It is unbelievable just to see this kind of...
On October 8th, I don't think there needed to be rallies cheering on Hamas.
You're calling her an anti-Semite?
I'm going to full-blown call her an anti-Semite. She would proudly call herself that, trust me.
Yes,
when we start normalizing these crazy conspiracy... I'm not... but just listen to who I'm talking about. he was refused coffee over someone
was
saying
vandalized.
yes.
So wait a minute. So one coffee shop is normalizing it?
No, his
No.
office was vandalized with anti-Semitic.
This is so stupid. One coffee shop. No, 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 Joy. No, open your old ass eyes, look around the country, and see what's going on around here. Do you remember the college campuses, Joy? Do you remember, or were you making excuses for them like every other leftist around the country? I would bet if we went back to those episodes, you would talk about how they're just exercising their free speech. Actually, I have no idea. I have no freaking idea. I don't really care, because the idea that you can minimize this by saying one coffee shop. Okay, if it's one coffee shop that's saying glory to the martyrs on October 8th, and kicking Jews out of the fucking coffee shop, I'd say that is a bad coffee shop. I don't care what the scale is. We need to look at the action. And when you have something like that, where it's clear, I mean, you just need to look at, once again, what is it that we constantly are hearing from the left, except for when it comes to this issue? How dare you, you evil racist or bigoted or it's always about white supremacists, and it's like, well, who do white supremacists always target? Jews. I mean, but not in the world of the View and these lovely ladies. They never, because as Whoopi said, it wasn't about race. It was, I mean, it is so amazing. And once again, we have a whole generation of people learning from people like this, who don't know a damn thing, know nothing about history, know nothing about what they're talking about, and are just there really to kind of push a sort of guilt trip on the white students, to push a sense of entitlement amongst all the other minorities that are kept out of the country. And then, whenever they're primed and ready to be kicked in the ass and knocked over, that's when you get the unfortunate little side effect of, oh geez, oh dear, oh no, we're in trouble. Because, I mean, what have we seen? What do we see? I always use this as an example. I always use this as a great one-for-one comparison. Charlie Kirk gets shot and murdered on a university campus. All around the country, there are candlelight vigils, prayer services. There are like displays set up, and people are mourning. People are mourning together. People are going to church again. People are trying to find faith again. People are looking to him and what he said, and trying to live by what he said, and trying to find the benefit and see if it actually enriches their lives. When a black man supposedly is killed by a police officer, that's an excuse, even when the country is locked down under any other circumstance, meaning everyone else is supposed to stay in their homes. But if it's for Black Lives Matter, then you can go out, you can destroy public property, you can destroy private property, you can burn down buildings, you can start fires, you can attack people on site, you can go after cops, you can burn down police precincts. I look at the difference between the reactions in these two cases. A white guy who is a conservative and went to college campuses to have the debate with anybody who is willing to step up and have the debate. A black guy with a huge rap sheet who was buying fentanyl right after he after he used a fake $20 bill to buy a bunch of shit from a liquor store, and then intimidated the store owner, and then used the same exact routine he had used the last time the cops had attempted to arrest him, and had been successful that time. This time, unfortunately, there was another aggravating factor. And no, it wasn't the knee on the neck. It was the shit ton of fentanyl in his system. I didn't even notice this until recently, and someday I'm going to have to find the picture to show you guys, because this was extraordinary. But in one of the pictures that was like a still frame of when they're kind of like pulling him out of the car. And he's got that face on. You literally see on his tongue a white tablet. It's sitting right there. I'm like, oh my god. I mean, like, so. But I guess what that was just aspirin or something, right? I mean, I'm sure that would be the first thing that these idiots would say. But just the overall point is, I'm not trying to make a wider point about race or demographics. I'm trying to make a point about ideologies here. I'm trying to make a point about political ideologies and moral ideologies, and which ones are based in a sense of community, a sense of a higher purpose for everybody, a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility, and which one is based on we want more, you owe us this, you owe us that, we are entitled to this because of bad thing happening. Like, and it's just nonstop grievance and anger and demands and entitlement and more. After we've already seen things like affirmative action and DEI and white guilt and freaking who knows how many other programs and get rich quick schemes and other bullshit tactics have been used by these people to come up with some ridiculous platform that's like, oh yeah, it's all these people's fault. Not one time can anybody take responsibility for a damn thing on this part in this party, and that's what I'm talking about. Once again, this is not about the race of anybody. This is about one side that convinces a group of people. I mean, because what do they do with the trans community? I mean, Dad, talk about a freaking a perfect case. They convince people that if you feel like your body is awkward and you don't feel like you quite fit in with everyone in the way that you feel inside about yourself, you may be trans or you may be non-binary. What the hell just turned off? Oh, that happens every time now. I think this light it's a great light, but it has some sort of weird turning itself down or something. Hold on, I'm almost positive. Yep. I see what's going on. After a time limit. Well, did that screw with the lighting or is it all right? Oh, it looks like we're still fine. Okay. Anyway, it's just like, I don't know. I'm not amazed, but I am. It's just disheartening, I guess is just the best way to put it. It's really disheartening to constantly see it like this because I don't know. There's no way around it, and we're just going to keep seeing it until something is able to break through to the thick skulls of people that actually bought into this. But the problem is they have bought into it so deeply that there's nothing much that can be done. There's literally nothing much that can be done, so we're kind of stuck in this position of just having to accept that half the country almost are lunatics that are willing to do anything and everything if it's against the other. And it's not just conservatives, it's not just Republicans, it's not just the idea of capitalism. It is the entire foundation of the country, and it has nothing to do with factual events that led to the founding of America. It has to do with the strange and convenient narrative they have latched onto after being propagandized for years by activists that tells them exactly what they want to hear about history, to come out with some sort of grievance that is able to be used as a catch-all sort of defensive tactic for any criticism, any shortcoming, any kind of deficiency that they have, and they probably feel ashamed for. But that's just the way that it goes. And so until something breaks through that, there's not really much that can be done. Anyway, let's finish this this lovely clip up. But
slurs in New York. Like,
So
this
one
is
thing I would say the
happening.
right is doing right now is the extreme right and the extreme left are meeting about anti-Semitism. They hide under the cloak of we're criticizing Israel, which some people who criticize Israel are not anti-Semites. All anti-Semites criticize Israel and use it as cover. As you always say, a racist doesn't say, hey, I'm a racist. They also don't say,
That's
hey, I'm an
bullshit,
anti-Semite.
But
Unless you're
all
this
of
kid.
that
Oh, is
does
that the
not
evil
bring
eye
down the
again?
cost of bread, which
Well,
is what
that is, you always say, a racist doesn't say, hey, I'm a racist. They also don't say, hey,
oh, it's even worse now. Oh, she's getting real fucking. She's really trying to manifest the eye lasers now. Look at that. Oh my God. Oh, jeez. You do not. That's like she's. I guess maybe she's aiming to be the next Nancy Pelosi. I don't know. Anyway, that's just
I'm an anti-Semite.
deadly.
Unless
But
you're
all
this
of that
candidate.
does not bring down the cost of bread, which
Well,
is what
that is
people are
my point
focused
here
on.
is though that's
The
what
cost of
that's the mistake the Democrats are making. Affordability and the separation between the haves and have-nots. That is fair. All Americans want to be able to afford groceries and health care and have good education and
Oh,
all
she's-
those
she's
things.
thinking about it.
That is not what these people are running on.
These same Democratic socialists last night were literally chanting, "You're next" at Hakeem Jeffries.
That they were, and that's why Hakeem is most certainly pretty worried right now. But let's just talk about that for just a second. The idea that this is about affordability, you can throw that idea out the window. That became apparent a long time ago because here's the reality of that shit. Anybody who's being honest and anybody who has actually looked into the history of socialism knows exactly what happens in socialist countries. Now, the fact that we are already under a crippling amount of debt is not going to help with this, but when let's take this for an example. New York is a great example because AOC, one of the most infamous things that she did, obviously bad thing, was when they were trying to get that Amazon facility set up in New York, and it was going to bring a bunch of jobs that were kind of low-skilled jobs and for a low amount of income, but it would have provided a lot of work for a lot of people. But because it was Amazon, and because Amazon is some sort of big business that's run by some billionaire, oh, no, we can't have that. We're going to make sure. So it didn't end up coming to New York. And a lot of people lost out on the opportunity to get some kind of work because she decided it was more important to virtue signal about the evils of capitalism than to allow the people of New York to have a shot at gaining some sort of income for themselves. This party has no interest whatsoever in realistic solutions to fixing the problems of quote-unquote affordability. What they want to do is use it as, you know how they always talked about how Trump killed the Langford bill? I heard this again, and I said, so fucking sick and tired of hearing this stupid talking point. They killed the Langford bill so he would have that to run on in the presidential debates. It's like, no. First of all, when you're a private citizen, which Trump was at the time, you can petition your government. Now, if you're a famous former president, on top of everything else that you've achieved in your life, your voice might carry some weight, a little bit more than others, with the current political members of your party that are in the legislative branch. So, therefore, they might be more inclined to listen to it. However, that in and of itself was not why the bill was killed. The bill was killed because of the arguments that were made in the legislative body against the bill. I still, to this day, feel bad for James Langford. I swear that guy didn't deserve to have that whole thing put on his head. Luckily, it seems like people actually did recognize that he was just put into that unwinnable position. And when you're a congressman and your name is on something, you really have no choice. You can't just say, I kind of got duped, because then you go back to your voters and they feel like, well, if they duped you, who else is gonna, you can't just admit some kind of weak spot like that. So he was forced to keep defending it. Luckily, he hasn't been forced to defend it anymore, but and not at least for a long time. But the point is that in that situation, what happened? Well, they're trying to bring in a Trojan horse bill, like they always do, where they say this was about solving the immigration crisis, and they didn't do it because Trump just wanted to run on the ad. Okay, well, what happened when Trump was elected, first of all? Well, he shut that shit down without any bills being passed. It wasn't even about the executive orders. It was about enforcing the damn law. That's point number one. And point number two, everybody that discusses the Langford bill, I even was listening to this while I was hearing this debate recently, and yes, it's true. They made the point in part that the bill was partly killed because it was attached to a spending package for Ukraine and for all the other stupid spending ideas that come out of Washington. But one of the most important reasons it was killed was because it did not solve the border crisis. It didn't do anything to force any kind of action among Border Patrol. It would have accomplished nothing. And as a matter of fact, the main purpose was to try their damnedest in one big Hail Mary attempt to hinder Donald Trump from enacting any kind of policy that would have fixed the border when he took office, should he have become president, by making there be a minimum amount of people that can be admitted. And here's the key factor. This was mostly around the concept of, as almost all of it was, mostly around the concept of, asylum. Because the whole asylum system, when there's a loophole in a system, everybody goes through it, and the way that machine had been set up during the Biden administration, it was so well oiled, it was so strategically prepared. The NGOs and the quote unquote humanitarian organizations that were all lined up along the trail, they had their roles and they were fitting into them perfectly. They knew exactly what they needed to do. And one of the most important things they told people when they were going to the border was say asylum, and you don't have to even know a damn other word of English as long as you just know that one word. That's your magic word to get in. If you know that, you're good to go. And that's what they did. And because under the Biden administration, they made it so that when people said asylum, you didn't question anything about it. I mean, they had people coming in from, Bukele's El Salvador, where, law and order had been reestablished, and it was now one of the most safe countries in Latin America. Maybe the most safe. I think it was the most safe country in Latin America. It may be on the entire American continent. It definitely is, even more than the U.S., because Bukele got serious as hell about crime. Now, why is this relevant? Well, my point is that if a country has laws that are meant to prevent some sort of action, you don't need to pass more legislation as an enforcement mechanism if there is already legislation that is on the books that makes the action illegal. What's happening in that situation, and what was happening, was that agents were being prevented from doing their job because any kind of superior above them was making sure that they would be replaced if they did anything that was not by the Biden administration's pre-approved list of responses to any immigrant trying to cross the border. Now, once again, this meant that the sex trafficking, labor trafficking, the gangs that were getting rich, the drug traffickers, the fucking human smugglers, every single atrocity that was going on during that whole thing, it was allowed to continue, it was allowed to keep going, and more people got hurt the longer it went on, but they didn't care. Why? Because the purpose of the whole purpose of the open border was being fulfilled on a daily basis. And the Langford bill's biggest problem, and the reason that you can say bipartisan all you want, but I guarantee you when it comes down to it, there was nothing bipartisan about it. If you set a minimum limit before the president can act based on a certain amount of people have to be first admitted before there's a bare minimum amount of people that you can now declare that the border must be closed and no more people admitted, you are essentially saying, okay, now Donald Trump has to act like the senile, delirious, weird president from the last administration and let a bunch of people in before he can even shut the border down. And because that didn't pass, that made sure that he could follow the current law, which was, yes, we are going to deport you if you try to cross the border illegally. Now, we watched that video not too long ago, and I won't play it again, but Chip Roy describing the process for asylum. And there's no part of the asylum process that means you come into the country while you wait for your asylum claim to be adjudicated. That's not part of the asylum process. You are supposed to be either detained or, and this was the brilliance of Trump's first administration when they came up with the Safe Third Countries Agreement, they could go to another country, which, once again, the idea of asylum, you're fleeing a country where you're being persecuted by a government that is acting out against the people or allowing other criminal or rogue agencies or enterprises to do the same thing while not even, loosely the wording is not putting forth any kind of good faith effort to attempt to stop the death and persecution of the people of the country. Now, there is no proof that any of the people coming from all these places, all over the place, all around the world, were coming from a government that was persecuting them. But it didn't matter because as soon as they were, once again, they say that magic word, asylum, and they come in, they're allowed to come in, they're allowed to stay, and they can stay here as long as they want. Because even if they get a court date, they just have to keep running. And when you are working, look at what happened with Minnesota. Trump needs to, as soon as this, especially if we get closer to the midterms and we need some serious action, we need people back in Minnesota. We need people back in Minnesota. We need people back in Los Angeles. We need people from ICE specifically back in. We need people in Rhode Island. We need people in all the hot spots. We need ICE back out there, and you can lay down the law. If you are out in these areas protesting violently against ICE agents, you will be detained by force and arrested, and you will be send a message out. We're not going to have more Alex Preddies and Renee Goods who are going to attempt to harm our deportation officers. We're not going to have people obstructing justice anymore. That's it. Poof, gone. No. I know it's hard to watch, but guess what? If these people weren't interfering, it would be a lot easier. You know why? Because they would be able to arrest the people that they said all along they're going after. I don't know what's so hard to understand about this fact. If you release a criminal who ICE is looking for into a community, where do you think they go? You think they go into a gated community of upstanding citizens? Or do you think they go back into a community of mostly illegals who are trying to find some sort of small corner that doesn't get policed that often? Guess what's going to draw the police there? When you release somebody who's here illegally and they're looking for them, that's going to draw them there. And that's why you see innocent, quote unquote innocent, although they're illegally in the country, that I wouldn't exactly say they're innocent, but the reason he's not, quote unquote, focused on his campaign promises of only arresting people who have serious offenses is because as they're looking for the people that are the violent offenders that got released deliberately by leftist judges, and like I've talked about a million times, in the last administration, they were just waving judges through over and over again. The amount of judges that were just waved on in like it was a turnstile, not even a turnstile, like it was a welcome wagon that was basically open all day for judges so long as they pledged allegiance to the flag of the Democratic Party of America, Democratic Socialists of America, actually. Then they're more than welcome to be a judge. If they didn't toe that line, though, if they weren't for illegal immigration, if they weren't for gun control, if they weren't for shrinking the police force and the immigration force, and so, in favor of course, things like more government handouts, more social safety programs, more a wider berth of free procedures for medical care, including, of course, when they talk about, life-saving medical care, that includes, of course, transgender surgeries for minors as well. they'll deny that up and down, but they're 100% for that. Have someone on the left or proclaims to be on the left go into the office with a mic that's hot and have them be asked directly about their opinion on transgender surgeries for minors, and I guarantee you there's going to be more than a handful of people in the Senate that are going to be like, oh, of course, yeah. Why? Well, they probably have something worked out with the hospitals, because they have blatantly bragged about how much money they're making off of children and during this time period where they're finding what works, and I talked about that before too. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. The point is that none of this is based on these ideas that they're making it about. And the reason I brought up the Langford bill and that whole thing was that when a bill goes through and they pass legislation that's meant to have a purpose, sometimes the purpose isn't obvious on its face, but it's sort of buried in the text and in the fine print, and then there's also all the distractions of money being spent here, money being spent there. And that's a perfect example. And unfortunately, once again, the way they, I think the whole Republican Senate, including James Langford, thought that when they were going to work on quote-unquote bipartisan legislation, it meant a couple, like 3 or 4 Democrats, 3 or 4 Republicans would going to work together on... No, it meant Democrat leadership and James Langford. And then they bring it to, the White House with the senile president and his staff, who very much run the White House. And they're kind of stealing the show at that point. There was nothing about that was like something I'm sure James Langford had any ability to prepare for. So when it comes to this sort of thing that's going on in the House right now, the idea that you want to have a bill that actually has some teeth, that's actually there as to provide a framework for enforcement, because it's something we've never really had, because we've never had a serious issue with until, it's been creeping up, but COVID, it exploded across the country because, a lot of freaking states decided, wow, man, when we have this whole COVID rules for elections, man, this makes it really easy for us to get those ballot harvest. You want proof? Look at what just happened in California. Look at what happened to, Spencer Pratt. Jeez. I don't think it takes a brain surgeon to figure out that, that is quite the convenient outcome, isn't it? That he's in the lead by a significant amount of percentage points until days later, and then suddenly, look at that. Now the farther left candidate than Karen Bass suddenly overtook him, because just about every single ballot that came in, with the maybe the exception of 10%, and that includes Karen Bass voters, that's coming in are all for Nithya Raman. She's a rising star. No, she's not. No, she's not. I guarantee you what happened there was all these stray ballots that have been scattered about the state, because don't forget, they send ballots to former residents, dead residents, residents that are too young to vote, residents that moved and haven't come back home, or they're knowingly on vacation somewhere out of the country or whatever. They still send them ballots. I've heard people like Victor Davis Hanson talk about how they still send his son a ballot, even though he moved out of the state like 5 years ago. He told them to stop. They still send him ballots for his son. They don't care as long as that ballot's out there. And that's really the crux of the issue, is that they'll find the ballots. I don't necessarily think that this is a situation where there's a lot of insidious people doing a bunch of insidious things on purpose. I think there's a lot of people on a very micro level doing things that are directly responsible for the outcome that the manipulative sort of Machiavellian leaders in the state want, and so they dutifully do it for their little piddly gold, and in the meantime, they get the sort of outcome they want in the election. If we had an enforcement mechanism to make sure there was something better than, you know, an all Democrat, all Democrat city council, an all Democrat freaking ballot counting operation, an all Democrat district, and all like every single aspect of this is just lined up so perfectly for the outcome to be exactly what it was, and that's why. And the other thing is, here's probably the biggest argument for why it makes no sense, if you care about the country, to block the SAVE Act. If you really cared about quote unquote democracy, if you really cared about people's vote being counted, they made this huge uproar about the end of the affirmative action in districting, so that you couldn't make a district based on race anymore. What was that thing about apartheid? I mean, what's the whole thing? Segregation and all those evil things that are done, yet you want districts that are all black. And that's the rub from the Democrat side. When they say they don't like collective groups, when they say that they don't like apartheid, when they say that they don't like segregation, they don't like it when it's implemented and meant to benefit other racial groups, especially white people. If it's meant to benefit black people, black leaders, the Al Sharptons of the world, the Ibram X. Kendis of the world, oh, they love that shit. They love that shit. That's exactly what they want. They want more. They want more consolidated Democrat minority power, and for some reason, the only thing I can guess is that when you live, when you get used to a lifestyle of, especially when it comes to women, like staying home with kids, when you don't, you really, really, really are like, you really, really, really have not worked a day in your life, and you're really worried about trying to find a job because, I can't work. I got kids to take care of. Those are the perfect targets for this kind of thing, because then it's like you have this threat of like, oh, they're gonna take your Social Security away. They're gonna take your food stamps away. They're gonna take your child support away. They're gonna take everything away from you. None of that shit is true. None of that shit is true. We can't even at this point get the Republican Party on board with a bill that is meant to guarantee only American citizens can vote in American elections. Now, I'm really hoping that the Republican Party can get it together before the midterms, especially with what we're seeing. I'm about to go to the clip now that puts all this on display, because I hope you guys are ready to see what these loons actually want. This is like, I mean, this is like borderline potential collapse of the country levels of policy prescriptions here. These are the policy prescriptions of people not just desperate for power, but desperate for recognition for their grand ideas to incorporate socialist belief. But like I said, if you're coming from the idea that that we need this bill, or we don't want this bill because it's going to disenfranchise voters. Yeah, that's the point. It's going to disenfranchise voters. It's going to disenfranchise voters who are illegally voting. That's the point of the bill, to stop illegals from voting, to stop people who aren't supposed to vote from voting, and to stop those votes from being counted in elections where the result is being skewed by people who shouldn't be able to put their vote in legally. And yet, we hear all these angry stories about, once again, the water story that was so full of shit. They take every example and they twist it into something nefarious. They're not allowing people to just even hand out water on hot days when you're waiting for. No, that's not what that did. That's not what the fucking legislation did. They made it codified into law that if you were a member of one party, meaning if you're partisan in some way or another, you can't give people in line to vote any kind of special treatment like giving them food, water, or other refreshments or beverages, anything like that, because that's considered bribery. And no fucking duh it is. Like, of course it's considered bribery because you're literally bribing somebody. If somebody is dying of thirst on a hot day in line, you get you get pollsters who are not partisan to be the one to walk around with all the bottled water. You don't get the Democrat spokesman to go walk around and hand out bottles. Now, I'm just using that as an example. I don't know who they were planning, but the whole point in this you have to remember, this is being strategically proposed, and they're making arguments that have nothing to do with the freaking actual legislation. But why would they say that? Obviously, because they think that that's going to be beneficial one way. And so this either can or can't pass depending on what they're trying to do. But when it comes to the border, once again, why would they care? And this was a question people have asked for a long time, and I think it's pretty safe to say at this point, there's only one conceivable reason that these people would fight so constantly for something like open borders for years and years and mass amnesty for all these illegal immigrants and letting in people who, as we've seen, we'll be getting to this later, but are you ready to see people who are going to slowly and methodically cut someone's head off after they stab them in the eyes in this country? Like we just saw in Britain or in Scotland, who was just doing that right in the middle of the street, because even though now we're still a country that has the Second Amendment, if the Democrats have their way, there wouldn't be a Second Amendment. If the Democrats had their way, there wouldn't be people to stop that. If the Democrats had their way, that guy would be in this country right now. Because you know why? He'd vote Democrat. There's no other reason. There's no other reason. They don't care if it's look at their treatment of Mahmoud Khalil. What was that guy doing? Oh, yeah, he was blocking Jewish people from getting to classes. He was supporting the Intifada in Israel. He was supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. And he's, shouting about how glory to the martyrs needs to be proclaimed. And we're talking about a sick individual here who is here, by the way, as Marco Rubio described, he's here to go to classes and study and be a student. He's not here to propagandize the United States population to believe that Hamas is not so bad. They're not really a terrorist organization, and it's really those damn Jews in Israel. It's all their fault. That is what the kind of... And we wonder how it happened in Britain. Well, I bet you, I would bet you pretty... there's some sort of parallel case that would be pretty close to that case that had happened before we got to the point of sawing somebody's head off. We had people simply advocating for illegals to vote. So, and once again, we are seeing this. We're seeing these obvious signs of what's going on, and nobody's going to call it out for what it is. And we need that more than ever now. We need somebody to... And President Trump does it all the time, and then he gets ridiculed and mocked and treated like he's a lunatic, and then you get jackasses like Brian Shapiro running around all over the radio trying to say, oh, he's a violent felon, he's a 34-count felon, and he pardoned all the January 6ers, and he did this and he did that. Okay, we're talking about our elections, asshole. If all that was true, and it would be a slam dunk for Democrats then, why would you not want to make sure that the laws are sealed tight so that your party will win for sure? Because your party won't win for sure unless you get those votes that are in your debt. That are in your debt for being allowed to come into the country. And they know it. That's the other thing with the NGOs. They're being coached on how to get through the border. They're being coached on what to say while they are interacting with Border Patrol and ICE agents and all this, just to make sure they have the highest chance of success. Mayorkas claims, and I can't even remember, maybe even Merrick Garland actually also claimed that He didn't understand what flooding the zone meant during the open border, which we had, just to refresh everybody's memory, when they'd have a big caravan of people that suddenly showed up in one spot in the border, and all the border agents had to rush to that spot. And so that left these huge tracts of fucking open border everywhere because there was no wall, it was wide open. Yeah, that's what the purpose of those were. The cartels were making so much money from that operation. And so, once again, that means there's another organization you can add to the list. You think the donors that would be stepping forward from the cartels, or who knows what they call themselves, we're a charitable organization out of southern Mexico that is into agriculture. And we think that this very cruel treatment of immigrants is wrong, and we're going to support the Democrat Party as long as, you do what you can to stop this. I guarantee you there were freaking cartel spokesmen and feelers and lawyers and every single thing. They aren't just hardened criminals. These are multi-million-dollar criminal enterprises we're talking about here. The biggest, I don't know who it is now, but when the first real big explosions of violence were going on in Mexico from the drug trade, it wasn't long after that the most notorious drug lord in Sinaloa, Chapo Guzman, was ranked by, I think, Time, or whatever the magazine is that ranks the most wealthy people on earth. I think he was ranked number 21 or something. So the guy who was running the most powerful drug cartel in Mexico was the 21st wealthiest man on planet Earth. And it wasn't because of his investments, and it wasn't because of his brilliant stock trades, and it wasn't because of a business that he had started that was incredibly lucrative, other than the illegal business he was running that involved torture, murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, human trafficking, and any nasty freaking thing you can think of. It involved that. But anyway, this is where it's like, we all used to recognize, and I can't believe I have to say this, but I'll just put it out. We all used to recognize that the laws were there for a reason, and when people started disregarding these things and things got out of control, we needed to have laws that were stricter be put in place to make sure that this kind of action and behavior was not to be tolerated. Should it rise up again? Now, every time that happens, the Democrats take an opposite position. We need to make sure that that no one is wrongly maligned with these. They are the fucking people. They're the fucking people that are responsible for it, and you're making excuses for them. It's amazing. Anyway, so here's a glimpse of exactly who we're talking about here that are going to be running in New York for the House of Representatives. I think they're all House Representative candidates so far, other than, of course, Graham Platner, who is trying to go for the Senate. And so once again, these are the four horse people of the American apocalypse, because we want that inclusivity, and or maybe not even horse people, four horse riders of the American destruction. I mean, that's what they are essentially. When it comes down to brass tacks, that's essentially what it is they're promoting. And if you need any further proof, here we go. As I promised, let's listen to what they actually have to say when they're pressed on their policy prescriptions for different aspects of the culture and our laws, and how we handle crime, how we handle financial policy, how we handle just listen to what these people have to say, and then come out on the other side saying these people sound like they are reasonable and good choices for the country. I just just I mean, I dare you to try and find that anywhere in this set of remarks. This is nowhere near comprehensive, but it's a pretty good little taste test of what it is that we'd be in for if these people were to win. I've heard people say that these guys are these people, in this case, 2 women, 1 man. Add Platner, it's 2 and 2. So you know, these absolutely anti-American scumbags. Here's what they have to say in their own words for their policies. So here we go. And like I said, any doubt that you may have, I think this will pretty much put it to rest. Here we go. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Ah, here it is. Okay. You notice something too in some cases with this, like the interviewer in these videos, almost like coaching or at least putting forth this anticipatory statement of what is the answer, and it's like they're not asking their policies, they are giving them a test to see if they pass by saying the thing they're supposed to say if they want the Democratic nomination. That's what these questions are about. It's not at all an interest in their policy. It's to make sure that if you're a hardcore leftist and you want a hardcore leftist government, well, then I'm your candidate. Like that's what this is attempting to establish here. It has nothing to do with the betterment of the country at all. Obviously, that's never factored in these people's calculations or anything like that. Anyway, here we go with this. Brace yourselves.
I want to still ask about 2 tweets specifically because I think they are relevant to the race. The first is all deportation is wrong. Now, in Congress, obviously, that comes with a lot of questions about immigration enforcement, and even as Democrats might agree with calls that you have shared to things like abolish ICE, I don't know if they're necessarily there on things like all deportation is wrong. Is that something you still believe?
That phrase, yes. I still believe that all deportations are wrong. And
even if we're talking about illegal entry to the country or someone who may have committed a crime?
so when we're talking about things like illegal entry, we're actually talking about administrative laws, right? We're not talking about criminal law.
Let me concede the question of people who have not committed.
I'm sorry, but let me just lay this to rest. Bullshit. Bullshit. It's federal criminal law. Sorry. Read the fucking U.S. Penal Code and then come back. Because this stupid, ridiculous talking point they've convinced themselves of about somehow there's a gray area with immigration. It's not really a federal offense. No, it is. It absolutely is, which is why the commander-in-chief is charged with protecting the country from foreign threats by securing the border with the help of the Homeland Security Director by preventing illegal entry. That is part of the job. So, yes, it's a fucking federal offense. This stupid talking point needs to be ended, like ASAP, because I'm so tired of this.
Because I think that that's not really the question at hand. Like, if we're saying all deportation is wrong, though, that would seem to also include people who were convicted of breaking U.S. criminal law. Is the deportation of those people wrong?
Yes, and the reason I say that is because we have a criminal system. It is imperfect, but it exists. And it is one that if we accept as the process by which we want to engage with these issues, right, the issues of harm, issues of criminality, or what have you, then we need to make sure that it is one that isn't also discriminatory on the basis of where people were born, right? To subject someone who has committed a crime to both a criminal system and then additionally to an immigration system that also detains them in the very same facilities that people who are convicted of criminal convictions are also held, right? And then deported and ripped away from everything they know and love. That is also punishment. And that is punishment not on the basis of the crime they committed, because they already served their time when they were processed through the criminal system. Punishment. It is double punishment. And if we truly...
Okay. I don't want to keep stopping it, but I'm just going to say this. Let's just state some obvious points here. Number one, the places that she's talking about, we checked out one of them when I showed you guys a video of the absolutely horrible, inhumane conditions that look like a public library, a park, pretty decent living quarters, and I didn't see anything inhumane about that facility. And it sure as hell didn't look like a prison for violent offenders. So that talking point is bullshit. Number two, this idea that we subject people to this system twice. Yeah, they broke more than one law, so they're going to be charged more than once. I know, that education is falling very rapidly in Democrat-run districts around the country, but we still need to actually be able to do basic numeral addition and subtraction here. And you have a crime, and you commit one, and while you're in custody, they learn you committed another crime. That's adding one. Or maybe there's more. That's adding several. You add 3 or 4. So you have one crime you're arrested for. They add some more that they find out you were charged with, but you were never caught and brought to court to actually face justice for it. So that's not doubling the punishment. That is correctly punishing somebody for the number of criminal offenses they have committed, one of which may be illegally coming into the country. Absolutely. In those cases, though, the remedy is usually deportation, unless for whatever reason it's so egregious that we want to do it on American soil. But I think in many cases today, and I think even among most Republicans, the choice for what we would like to do is just say goodbye. You're no longer going to be staying in this country, and if you come back again, we're going to make sure you stay underneath the jail and you don't get out ever again. So, toodaloo, have fun. I mean, not to mention the fact that a lot of people are self-deporting. There are more people self-deporting than there are people who are successfully detained and removed by ICE because of both the combination of the radical lunatics on the streets trying to stop them and the radical lunatic judges that were nominated by the last administration and other stupid leftists that are trying to stop them in the courts. So there's all different kinds of obstacles. Luckily, we've had a couple of decisions recently, and I'm so glad this one got solved. The idea of temporary protective status. Once again, the key word being temporary. And here's the funny part about that. We'll get back to this. But the funny part about that is some jackass, I don't remember who it was, some jackass leftist said, well, so change the name then. No, how about you change the way we treat them? We actually follow through with the temporary part. Because that was what the program was intended to do. There was never an intention to be permanent. That's why it was called temporary protective. It was not permanent protective like, asylum is. We already have a system for that. So why do we need another one? Well, because we need more fucking people to be accepted under the government as a refugee and as an immigrant and as an American citizen, I guess. Or whatever you want to call them. They're obviously not American citizens. This is just like the lunacy of this shit. And once again, oh, it's so cruel and unusual. It's so anti-American. No, it's exactly American and fitting with English common law for somebody who comes into the country illegally, especially when they commit crimes against the native population, to be able to freaking take that person and kick their ass square out of the country. That's a very, very American thing. That is exactly what should happen in this country and any civilized country that gives a shit about prospering and gives a shit in particular about their own actual legal goddamn citizens. I'm sorry. Anyway, these people, these sick people.
I believe that double jeopardy is something that is unconstitutional, something that is unethical, something that is against the principles of equality in this country. We cannot subject people to that on the basis of where they were born.
Immigration in a different way. We hear all these, white conservative men talk about who does and does not belong here. And look, this nation was founded on genocide and the mass displacement of people. It's just the history. And to say
No,
that
it's
some
not the
people cannot
history.
belong here, it's like, come on. Like,
Oh, that's the
Yeah,
argument.
you know,
you can leave first.
No, how about no? We can't leave first. We won't leave first because we won the Civil War. It's our fucking country. We're not the ones complaining about it. We're not the ones trying to change it. You are. You and your lunatic fucking band of cohorts you are leading around the country to protest literally everything. You don't like the Second Amendment. You don't like parts of the First Amendment that you can't hide behind. You don't like pretty much every part of the Declaration. You don't like any part of the Constitution. You don't like any part of the government. You don't like capitalism. You don't like democracy when it goes the way that you don't like in terms of the voters voting for a candidate you don't like. Then suddenly it's not the system operating as intended. Suddenly it's the game being rigged by rich donors, and it's all AIPAC's fault. I've never seen a group of more bitchy, whiny, entitled pieces of crap than I'm seeing in these fucking people. Listen to this shit. This country was founded on genocide. What the fuck are you talking about? What genocide? Who? The Native Americans? The ones that are still alive today and were apologized to and are given all kinds of freaking free benefits by the federal government today? Those people? I can kind of safely say that there was no genocide committed against them. There's a lot of tribal warfare, intertribal warfare. There was a lot of freaking diseases that were going around that they died from. There was a lot of things that they did that were pretty nasty. I guess you'd be fine if your whole family was scalped while they were still alive, though, huh, Francesca? They were just, peaceful people. That's part of the history. The white man didn't invent that part. You stupid fuck. I cannot stand Francesca. She actually, funny story, she got booted out of the Young Turks because of how freaking big of a loony bin she is. And that is one of the key points. I really, really despise that fat slab of bacon that runs that stupid show. I'm no fan of Anna Kasparian, but when they're calling you out, you have a serious problem. You have a serious problem that you might want to look at seriously and seriously take a deep look at yourself and why it is you support things that are so anti-American and so destructive, and why you blame white people, and particularly, like as you said right in this video, white males, white male Americans, white straight male Americans. They're the devil in human form. You never hear a white political figure, a white podcaster, a white media figure ever say those damn black people are the cause for everything that's wrong with this country. Why is that? Well, because they don't generally have any incentive or any desire to lump people into a category based on immutable characteristics that they have no control over, and would much rather judge individuals by their individual choices. You guys don't seem to subscribe to that belief. You think that you can tell what a person believes and what they hold most sacred based on their freaking melanin content, of all things. And look at this smug, fucking dumbass looking bitch on the right, giggling and chuckling about the idea of throwing white people out of the country. Yeah, because it's so funny. Har har, let's laugh it up. And it's like, I sincerely, honestly wish that these people would just, at some point, actually pick up a real fucking history book and actually read about the history of America. Almost every single statement they make about American history is bullshit. Almost every single one. You hardly ever hear a leftist talk about American history and actually talk about the true history of this country. It's always talking points that are rooted in no fucking actual fact. It's all bullshit. It's all this accepted narrative that's been told to people for over and over again. And I guess is understandable. But once again, I don't feel pity anymore because I can't. I'm sorry. Once there's enough voices saying no, there's a reason to believe that that's not true, and instead of actually looking into it, you just dismiss it because it's convenient for you to keep believing the thing that you still believe. Sorry, I have no more sympathy left. I have no more tolerance left, and I have no more benefit of the doubt left I can possibly grant you, because that is willful ignorance. That is not even the kind of things we see going on in college campuses where persuasive professors convince gullible students about the history of America and white privilege and all the other crap. No, that what we're talking about here, we are talking about a agenda-based historical reference point that is. There's never any evidence provided. There's never any accounts provided. Anything that is talked about is skewed or butchered or just conveniently left out. Like, for example, who was it that ended the slave trade and attempted to stop it worldwide? That would be the British, followed not so long after by the Americans after the Civil War. And you know how much Britain lost by trying to end the slavery of people in general across the entire continent of Europe and Africa and everywhere they could get their ships to? Like, they bought out as many countries as they could buy out financially, and for the countries that didn't work for, where they needed to use force, they kept it up using their own naval soldiers and military personnel for years and years and years after, to actually end this purely on the basis that they believed it was a barbaric and immoral practice. It wasn't to win an election like you guys are trying to always do with your fake moral bullshit. It was actually based on moral principles, which is why Americans did it as well. You guys don't have any moral principles you believe in that much. You only have the values that you believe are going to win you the next election that you pin your hopes and dreams on. So we'll just do that. I get so tired of hearing the talking points, because when you've heard it and you know, like, that they're just twisting facts and people believe this shit, I guess it just drives you crazy after a while. It drives me crazy just to hear it. Anyway, go keep up the stupidity.
Is what you mean. You can show yourself the door. This is a nation that that should be welcoming people here, that want to the people who come here to build better lives and for themselves and their families, to deserve real dignity, deserve to stay here,
like
and we should be welcoming that.
And so, like, and finding that, like, the system of capitalism and racism and white supremacy, etc., have all, and Islamophobia, have all been used, to colonize lands, right, to take resources from other people. And so this is like a long trajectory, and we're just seeing the manifestations of that continuation, right, with 9/11. And so a lot of times when people are asking us to respond about, attack, right, if you look back, like, historically, right, a lot of us come from lands that were colonized, lands where wars are being waged, right, a lot of times because of U.S. policy or the policies in Europe. And so I find that we can connect over that, but then also that the idea that we have to apologize for, like, a terror attack that, like, a couple of people did, and then there is no apologies or reparations for genocides and for slavery, etc., is something that I kind of find, like, reprehensible.
Immigrants that are living in fear of ICE every single day. What can we do to resist this? We are calling for abolishing ICE and agents who live to exceptionalize who gets to be part of this country. My parents were both undocumented, and I remember my parents speaking about what to do. Should they leave the country? Where should they hide if an ICE agent comes to the home?
So there you have it. This is the group that New Yorkers thought would be best representative of their well-being and their best interest in the legislative body of the United States. This group here, which I don't know. I don't doubt that that's the case there. I mean, we don't have the same sort of situation that is like a Spencer Pratt thing, but But I also look at it and I go, like, what has happened to the voters of New York to get them to be so jaded, to be so outwardly trying to project this idea that we have pride as New Yorkers, and yet at the same time despise the country they come from, despise the freaking documents that we were founded on, twist the American history and everything that happened during the founding into this evil sort of what's the word? Artificial version of history that is just based on all these different ideas that they thought were palatable to be accepted by their voting blocks, that would be the most powerful in terms of the rhetoric they would use, and that's why they throw around words like apartheid and genocide, and it's like, I'm sorry, who was it that entered a free country that accepts Muslims and accepts Christians and accepts Jews and accepts everybody? They just would prefer rockets not being fired into their country, and for that trouble, they had people fly in on paragliders and big-ass freaking tractors plowing down their fences so that they could specifically go after innocent citizens, not targeting military fighters, not targeting confirmed terrorists, not targeting people they even believed were guilty of a damn thing. In fact, a lot of them being children, and brutally tortured and murdered them in the most disgustingly painful and inhumane and just barbaric fucking ways imaginable. Oh, that's the couple of people that she's talking about that also were responsible for, that ideology that they espouse, was also responsible for those couple of people that came in and just decided to hijack some planes and blow up few buildings and kill, over 3,000 people in the process. Not, why split hairs about that sort of thing? I guess I'm just getting to a point where I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, we'll finish off with this because, and then we'll move on to the other subject for the day, because it's dark too, but I can't take this one anymore. I'm about to lose my mind. But I can't look at this and see anything here but deliberate and open attempts to essentially destroy the country and build it up in a totally different method. Like, what they are attempting to do, there's no way around it anymore. There's no reason. They openly have contempt for the country. Any kind of bullshit narrative that they try to feed people about how they're so happy to be American, they care about the country, they want this country to succeed and get better. Yeah, they're all talking points. They're all bullshit. And no, they don't care at all about this country. Their loyalty lies elsewhere. That's clear. And the things that they're talking about, the things that they're trying to use as justification for how they've come to these positions, I'd say that, the reason it pisses me off so much is because they've used the education system, they've used mainstream media, they've used social media, they've used propagandists, they've used NGOs, they've used all kinds of different, any kind of source that they could that had some sort of authority or something to be able to convince people of a convenient narrative that just so happened to back the policies that they wanted to be backed. And all of them, every single one of them, has promoted bullshit that is a total misreading and directing people to believe things about our history that are just not true, just simply not true. And they take a nugget of truth, they take a nugget of something that's happened that was really negative in the history of the country and twist it into not only something that was really damaging and dangerous at the time and very bad for anybody trying to be in the process of forming a better country, but they also turn it into a reason why today, now, the system is still corrupted by these same elements, and that's why we have to tear it down. Let me ask you guys a question, and if anybody wants to answer, feel free. When's the last time you heard someone running around screaming, white power, white power, white? You know, I don't really, I can't say I remember that except for maybe the Charlottesville, which ironically, that was paid for by the Southern Poverty Law Center. So I don't know what their motivations were. It was probably just to get a big fat check. So aside from that, nothing's really coming to mind. But how often can you remember people running around screaming, Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! I remember that on quite a few occasions as of late. And I remember what follows that as well. You guys remember? Do you guys remember a lot of death, a lot of torture, a lot of very, very bloody and barbaric freaking inhumane ways of murdering innocent people for no other reason than their refusal to convert to their fucking sadistic, sick religion? You know, the one founded by the actual pedo who, as much as they want to talk about the Epstein class, I guess, I don't know if Muhammad would fit in that one, but as far as ideology, he wasn't too far off. It's always a problem until it involves their side. Then suddenly there's a million reasons why it's tolerable. It's fine. It's not something that... But there was reasons for that at the time. And, well, guess what? Every single talking point you brought up was bullshit. And any grain of truth that you may have been hinging on, yeah, there was a reason for it. There's a reason for it. The reason for a lot of conditions that came about in this country that was about slavery, that super important institution that this country was founded on. Yeah, that was essentially a necessary compromise to make sure that we weren't being attacked and attempting to be overrun and murdered and killed and having our president taken out of the country by the British, who wanted us to sit down and do as we were told, while they took the leaders of the country, brought them back to Britain, and then tortured them and killed them before a bloodthirsty mob, and then sent their body parts to all the corners of Europe to glamorize how fucking tough they are. The reason it happened was because they couldn't win a war against the world's greatest military power at the time with a divided country. And the part of the country that, you know, later became the Democrat Party, the ones in the South, they weren't going to sign on unless their state had the right to do what they wanted with their slaves. So it was all that could be done in the short time period they had to be able to make sure that before the British got here, we had a unified group that was prepared to fight a war. That's why it wasn't long after that there was a civil war, which was about the rights that they wanted included in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, but couldn't include because in order to defeat the fucking British, they had to have a unified colony. It's tough and it's hard to swallow, and it doesn't make it a good thing. But the success of the war on behalf of the colonies is the whole reason why we were able to go on to have the bloodiest war in our history and free the slaves and make sure that our Constitution enshrined their freedom, which, of course, now is not nearly enough, apparently, according to a lot of people on the left who think that, you know, it doesn't mean anything until white people pay reparations and volunteer to be their personal, you know, dogs, I guess, for a few years, and then decide to, make sure that they never do anything to offend the poor little fragile minds of these strong black visionaries that are immovable. Like, what are they? Are they strong visionaries or are they poor victims? I mean, you can't really have both in the same person. That doesn't mean they don't have vulnerabilities, but it does mean that they're not sitting around crying about some guy calling them the N-word, and that's oh my gosh, that's ruined my life so badly. I'm going to end my movement for civil rights. Like, no, they took it and moved on like anybody of moral character actually would do, because they're fighting for a bigger cause than themselves. And if you're doing that, sometimes you have to accept that there's some responsibilities and some difficulties that are going to come along with that. There's people that have died all throughout history because of that. And which, by the way, one more thing. I want to talk about the colonization of the continent where all your little religious faith comes from. It's a lot older than the United States is, and I would suggest that you obviously also don't know anything about not only the United States, but apparently about your own religious history. The history of Islam, the history of the Islamic faith, the history of the wars that have been fought by Islam, the history of what they did to conquered people, the history of the founder of the religion, who was a pretty sick motherfucker. Sorry. Maybe you should learn about that too. Because for all the talk that goes around about how the barbaric white people and Christians that always were running around the crusade, you know who was often the instigators of those crusades? Yeah, that would be the Muslims. That'd be the Muslims trying to take over territory that was already established, and by the way, was, it was already their land. They're trying to take over that land and claim it as their own. Were they coming in as colonizers? No, it can't be. No, it can't be. Absolutely not. No, Muslims would never be colonizers, except they basically did that every fucking where they went. They enslaved the native population and they colonized the hell out of it. Not only that, but when I talk about slavery, how about the Islamic slave trade, the one that went from Africa all the way up through the desert to the Arabic countries? You know what they did to the people that were enslaved on that route, particularly the men? You see, they didn't want anything disrupting their 100% Arabic blood and potentially having someone around that was going to impregnate a Arabic woman, or especially a Muslim woman, God forbid. So some procedures are going to have to take place before they get to those Islamic countries to make sure that no abominable children are born that are of mixed heritage. How dare they? And there's only one thing that they can do, I guess, because we can't let this happen. Cannot let this happen, so let's make sure we nip it in the bud right here. And yeah, they're gonna have to march across the desert, but what's a little operation on these people? Which, by the way, ended up killing a lot of them because these weren't sterile doctors' offices that they're performing these medical procedures in. No, and it was with very crude tools that were. I don't think I have to say they weren't sterile. They were, in fact, about as far from sterile as I think you can imagine. So most of them that had that procedure died. But here's the catch. Here's the catch. Are you ready for it? Ready for it? The eunuchs that they brought in to the Arabic countries were worth so much more than the Africans that weren't castrated, that even if some of them died, it was still worth it because they made so much money off those eunuchs that, what the hell, let's just try it as often as we need. With the women, we could just keep raping them, that's fine. And if she gets pregnant, we'll murder her too. But, we are talking about some of the most savage, brutal butchery in the history of the world that took place based on Islamic expansion. And yet, they want to criticize the United States for the founding. Yeah. I would go back and maybe you should just go back to the Islamic countries. I think you might be a lot happier there because apparently you don't see it the way that most civilized people would see it. Like, us and the British at the time, and basically the whole of Europe after a few years that were, like, for example, the French colonies or the French territories got involved as well after some time. Now, they weren't one of the first out of the gate, but they did support the effort with their own warships after a time. I mean, this was a very, very unified group after the decision had been made that this practice is completely immoral. We need to end the practice of slavery throughout the world. That was due to the English culture and English moral beliefs based on their Christian heritage. It's a little bit more humane and has a little bit more dignity in it than the religion that was founded by the guy who married a 9-year-old. Well, I'm sorry, married her when she was 6, but only started having sex when she was 9. So at least there was some takeoff room there. Jeez. But this is what I mean. That's what I mean. Demonize the West for everything you can find and pick out, and not once ever discuss the pitfalls. And if they did, you know what they would say? I guarantee you, they would say that practice is banned by Muslims. How dare you say something? Oh, I'm sorry. Historical reference is a little tough to swallow for you there, huh? Yeah. Well, maybe you should shut your big fucking mouth then when it comes to events that took place in history that are so evil that they can never be forgotten. I think those things should never be forgotten. I think the way that black people were treated by the Arabic slave trade, who actually were in large part responsible for the transatlantic slave trade as well. Same people. They just got their ships and dragged them across the ocean after they bought them from the, African warlords that conquered the other tribes. We're not talking about Whitey going in to the interior of Africa where he would more likely, as was discussed in the short documentary we watched the other day, more likely to catch chlamydia than he was, what was the, I don't think it was chlamydia. Sorry. What's that? Gosh. It was a disease that really, it prevented European and American people from settling anywhere on the African continent for a long, long period of time. For some reason, I can't think of the disease. And anyway, but yeah, they couldn't survive. Not only because of the disease, but because they didn't know the land, because of the tribes in the area that would be hostile towards anyone, just strolling into their territory. So it was a dangerous place. But because of the length of time that the Arabic slave trade was operating, even before long before the American colonies, and how long the slave traders had been making that trip, they were not exactly people that were welcomed, but were people that were most certainly seen as like, ooh, we can make some money. There, those people are. Let's try selling some of those slaves we rounded up after the last. And you think they gave a shit about what happened to them after they sold them? Of course not. So, this is just. Once again, we're talking about this. Why? Because this is the justification they use as to why this country is rotten and it needs to be uprooted and it needs to be tossed down. We need to put a new plant in there, the plant of socialism that's going to save the country. I don't want to see what would happen, but when you've got a country that is as much in debt as we are, and then if you implement a system of government that has consistently been responsible for widespread famine, widespread hunger, widespread poverty, and the most corrupt system of government that produces, you want to talk about I talk about a system that produces wealth inequality. You have about the biggest wealth inequality you could possibly imagine in the countries that adopted socialism, especially communism, but socialism in particular, because what happens? The corrupt people rise to the top every single time. So, sorry if I don't believe your little pitch here, but it's bullshit. One last thing. If you already weren't convinced, this is a pretty solid reason to believe it. And once again, it's just filled with reasons why this is just screaming bad idea. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to welcome back the political stylings of an old friend of ours.
Hassan Shah!
That's right. It's Hassan. Guess who is one of the biggest supporters of these super far left candidates? That would be Mr. Hassan Piker himself. That fucking idiot. And try not to gag when you see this clip. It is pretty much vomit-inducing to a degree, but yeah, it's look at how proud he is of this quote-unquote, I guess, accomplishment here. So here we go with a little victory lap from Hassan and some of his choice statements about these candidates that he's so excited about. Because, I mean, the change is coming. Change is coming on his train now. Jeez Louise. Anyway, yeah, where did this go? Damn, where did it go? Oh, whoops. Oh, you know what? It might be in the other folder. I forgot. I was saving it to the wrong spot for a while, and I don't remember what I named it, so just let me see if I can find. It's gonna be hard to do the other story I was gonna do today, man. This is taking up more time than I expected. As a matter of fact, it's getting hot here. I'm gonna turn the AC on just for a little bit. Maybe a little bit of background noise. It might not come through. Hold on a second. Huh? Where did it go? It's gotta be in here then. That's weird. I know I freaking cut it because it was basically 3 parts of a clip that oh, here it is. I forgot because this was bookmarked or bookended by the Matt Walsh clips. This isn't the or is it? It is. It's the it's the rest of that Netanyahu conspiracy that was from the intro clip. So, yeah. Without further ado, here we go with the take of Mr. Popular himself, Hassan Piker. Yay! Super exciting. Not really. Anyway, here we go.
The response has to be to train our focus on the issues that actually matter to this country and its people. I received this response the other day, which is a response to my post that, you know, is declaring war on the third world communism in this country. But this is the response from Ryan Grimm. Quote, AIPAC gets wrecked in NYC and Matt Walsh capes in to try to reframe it in some race war terms. He plays this game where he's critical of Netanyahu, but when it matters, he does the thing most helpful to Netanyahu. What? What the hell does Netanyahu have to do with, we're talking about primary elections in the United States of America. Okay, so what you're claiming is that if you care about the fact that communists are winning elections in our largest city, and you care about how they're trying to destroy the country, nationalizing the airlines, destroying the economy, then you're an agent of Israel? That's what this guy is unironically claiming.
Yeah.
If you want to preserve this, if you have a problem with candidates who have explicitly called for the destruction of Western civilization, then you're helping Netanyahu. If you don't want Western civilization to be destroyed by hordes of communists who have explicitly said that is their goal, then you're helping Netanyahu. The more we tolerate this brain rot, the worse it will get. Okay? I don't give a damn.
I'm sorry. But this is, I mean, like, considering how Matt Walsh doesn't really get angry like this very often, but that's why I find it so funny, because, like, it pisses me off too, but when I listen to somebody else that is just, like, so confused, and I'm watching this bullshit too, and I'm like, where does this shit come from? And I'm wondering, and then I see somebody else who's just as confused as I am, and just explodes like, what the hell does this have to do with Netanyahu? And I'm like, yeah, I've been wondering that myself, Matt. I mean, this isn't about Matt. He's got a funny, it's just the mannerisms and the response, it's just perfect. And from a guy like Matt Walsh, who's so kind of subdued by nature and very, 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 very prone to not get all worked up about something, it takes something really ridiculous to get him to start kind of raising his voice and kind of looking at something as such complete lunacy that he just is completely out of like at a loss for words. And this is that thing, and it's just I can't help it. It's hilarious. It's hilarious to watch the guy just completely unable to formulate the sentence, because, like, what the fuck does this have to do with Netanyahu and Israel? We've got 3 candidates who have espoused socialist talking points and anti-American propaganda, and this dumb fuck on X thinks that it's to, dog whistle for Netanyahu and the Israeli government. Like, what the fuck? How in the hell did people buy into this so hardcore that that's where their mind goes to first when you're trying to argue against the people openly attempting to try and destroy your country from the inside out? Like, what? Well, you can blame the institutions, and you can blame, but ultimately, I'm sorry, I have to feel like if I was told this when I went to community college, which, like I've said before, there were several. We're talking about California here. We're talking about California, and when, like I said, it's not Southern California. It's not the Bay Area. We're talking about a more well-rounded portion of the state, but still openly conservative teachers, and some of them that would even debate students on conservatism. And that was a common occurrence at the time, not abundantly, everywhere, but you would have I would say probably every semester I went, I more than likely had at least one professor who was either conservative or leaned right or was independent, but kind of went both ways on the issues. And I'll never forget the English teacher I had in kind of a college English and it was a writing course essentially. I never learned from any other class I ever took in high school or college or anything else. I never learned a better formula and better lessons on how to correctly write an essay, like to actually correctly write a formal essay, start to finish, better than in his class. And I swear, he was a kind of stingy guy. He was a bigger guy, and he didn't talk anything, political, but he did travel a lot, and he was a really interesting guy. And I had this weird thing where the teachers that they were kind of reserved and a little bit more like people usually weren't all that keen. They didn't really like him very much. Somehow I always kind of found this way to get the opportunity to talk to them on a like kind of one-on-one basis, either right after class when people were leaving, or sometimes I'd have to come in and drop something off late or whatever, and I'd talk to him for a little bit. And I remember talking to this guy, and he was even just one-on-one, he was a little bit more reserved, but most certainly very, very knowledgeable, a very smart guy. And like I said, I didn't have a more effective teacher in the world of English writing in any other course I ever took than from this guy. And probably the most middle of the road sort of political guy I can think of off the top of my head. But more than anything, he believed whatever it was you're pursuing, the best way to go about it was hard work and the old-fashioned method of putting in the time, the effort, and the energy to really do what was necessary to accomplish that goal. Very straightforward, very old school, very straight to the point, and I really admired the guy. Even though I didn't really know him that well, I did talk to him, on a handful of occasions, and I got to know him a little bit. And for, as like I said, there was a few teachers that I had that were kind of like that. And the teachers that were a little more popular, they always had people around them. There was only one that was like that I got to know really well, and it was because you could tell he kind of didn't like dealing with a lot of the bullshit. He just kind of felt like he had to. And he was an old school punk rocker that kind of got older and became like a teacher, like an art teacher and a shop class teacher and shit like that. Believe it or not, it wasn't necessarily shop per se, but it was shop, because the way they hit it was all for the theater department. And since I admit it, I was a goofy theater kid, of course. In high school, I was a goofy theater kid, but my senior year, instead of taking theater, I took shop, and so we made, like, there was a play that was going on that was taking place in like a sort of kind of basically like a Little House on the Prairie kind of theme kind of and look to it. So we had to make these wooden tables and benches and things like that, and me and this girl were it was all on us to make them, and we fucking were knocking those things out. It was rough, but we pulled it off. And they held up the whole play. They didn't have any issues. They were cut, lacquered, and screwed together, bolted together, whatever we could do. Worked like a charm. But the point is that that teacher was kind of friendly with everybody. But I remember with me, sometimes he'd get done with a student. You could just tell that it was like trying to sound like he was super cool, and he would get done with the talking to him, and he'd turn around and then he'd look over at me and he'd go, like, shut the hell up, would you, jeez Louise. But I loved to see that side of people, because it was real back then, man. Like, there was actually, teachers actually had a personality. They weren't constantly attempting to cater to somebody's feelings or anything like that. It was trying to get people to engage, but it wasn't going to stand for people that were disruptive or a problem. It wasn't going to cater to them. It wasn't going to play therapist with them. It was going to make sure that they were disciplined if they were doing something wrong. It's like, and now I look at the way that the quote unquote lesson plans that are put on every level of schooling, and I go, what the hell? Well, it's created this. It's created this generation, the ones that are promoting this kind of bullshit ideology because slavery happened, and therefore we need this. No.
Okay, I don't give a damn about Netanyahu. The idea that American citizens who oppose the election of third world communists are somehow helping Netanyahu is so delusional and insane that it passes from a mere retarded talking point into full-blown schizophrenia,
yes,
which is what we're dealing with. I mean, these people, as I've said before, are Israel first from the other direction. It's the only thing they can think about. And while they're talking about Netanyahu, this is what one of the most popular leftists in the country is saying right now. Watch.
Here we go.
We got people who love Stalin, Mao, maybe even Trotsky, who are now saying, I'm going to vote. I'm going to engage in electoralism for once.
You notice how happy he is to say that? He's happy that people that were Stalin Maoist, you know, the Chinese leader who was responsible for possibly the biggest widespread famine in the history of the world, potentially, that almost fucking wiped out the entire, potentially could have wiped out the whole population of China, and was I believe the leader during the infamous Tiananmen Square incident. You know, the one that what's his name? Tim Limp Wrist Walls was apparently there, but not there for. And I mean, I'm sure his fat ass got out there and he was gonna block the tank. Yeah, yep. He might have actually been able to stop it, considering the sheer mass ratio we're talking about here. But yeah, I mean, the excitement in his voice that, yeah, Maoists are going to vote in this election. I would prefer they sat their ass out. In fact, I would prefer them get their ass out of the country. I don't want Maoists in the country. And yet, this is, like Matt Walsh said, he can't stand the fact that Asmongold gets more viewers than him. I'm not this giant Asmongold fan or anything, but I just love the fact that he's beating Hassan, because Hassan, that's like his biggest point of anger and resentment, and it just gets under his skin so bad that Asmongold, that disgusting, dirty, unwashed peasant, why the hell does he get more views than me? Because he does something you can't do, Hassan. Whether I agree or not, he's honest with his audience. And I know you can't do that because, you know, you've stoked an army full of bloodthirsty lunatics that would have your head if you had an alternate opinion one day, and then where would you be? You would. It's not just that you would just be without a head. Even worse, you'd be without your income. And your expensive clothes. Well, we can't have that. Heaven forbid. This guy is such a fucking fraud while he sits there and bitches and moans about oligarchs and the wealthy not paying their fair share, while he's sitting there raking in a shit ton of money with all. The other thing is, even though Asmongold outperforms him, you think Asmongold gets any deals from major, I guarantee you this guy accepts every fucking sleazy ass promotional deal that comes his way. You know why? He has no standards. He has no fucking beliefs that he is committed to. He believes in whatever's going to get him the most people paying attention to him. That's what he believes in.
I'm going to engage in electoralism. I'm going to vote for Claire Valdez. I am further to the left, and I normally do not participate in bourgeois elections, but it's the commie corridor. We got to make it. We got to make sure that people see how red this commie corridor is, all the way from space.
Primaries are how we change the trajectory of the Democratic Party and hopefully change the trajectory of America. Okay?
We're going to be heading out first to Bushwick, the commie corridor itself, live and alive from the heart of the inflection point of the American communist movement.
This has nothing to do with Zoran's clout. This has everything to do with whether or not democratic socialists can door knock and have the capacity to mobilize against tremendous amounts of money pouring in from outside expenditures. It's an inside-outside movement. You obviously have to keep applying pressure with direct action. You have to, engage in labor militancy, work stoppages, things of that nature. But then also simultaneously, you got to have people on the inside as well.
Issues that you just described.
It's the decade of socialism. It's coming to a neighborhood near you. When I said we were going to let 1,000 Zoros bloom, this is what I meant.
McCarthy was right. McCarthyism was fully justified. And we need a new wave of it if we don't want to end up exactly like the Soviet Union did.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the harsh reality, and that's really why I think I'm going to have to wait till the next show to get to the next one. It's such a big topic as well. It's Rupert Lowe was on PBD's podcast via voice video call, and discussing directly with PBD the report that they made in Britain about the rape gangs, the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, and all the evidence that and testimony that had been gathered by their report. It's a very hard watch, and I think it probably would be better to watch that one on its own on another day after this, because, like I said, how long have I been going now? It's been a while, I think. Oh yeah, we've been going 240. So I'm gonna probably call it a show in just a minute. But first, because we just watched that abomination of Hassan and his insanely stupid points, we need a little palate cleanser that's going to be a good way to sort of get that thought and put it into context of who this fucking clown actually is. And when he talks about we need to get people knocking on doors, and we need to get mobilized, and we need to get everybody on the same page. Yeah, let's see how that works when he's in a crowd of people. I think I still have the clip here. And let's see, where is that thing? Oh no, don't tell me it's gone. I'd actually get rid of it. I didn't think I would, but maybe it's in my other folder. I thought I would have taken it out of there, but maybe I forgot to. Hold on, let's see. This one a while back now, but it might be in here. Ah, hey, yes it is. So yeah, let's one more time look at the all the influence that that Mr. Influencer Hassan Piker is able to gin up, and the amount of attention he's able to garner for himself by doing what again? Oh yeah, being a jackass and promoting completely anti-West, anti-American, anti-free speech, anti-property, private property ownership. Basically, everything antithesis of the United States and what it stands for and what it has always stood for. He promotes the exact opposite while saying he cares about the country. Let's see what the country thinks of him when he's out spreading his super populist message with the common folk. You know, the people that have been brutalized and beaten down by the system that has kept them oppressed for so long, merely because of their skin color. How do they take to Hassan's brave ability to stand and get a crowd and gain their support and have them follow him into the gates of hell if need be. Let's see that again, because this one's an important one to see. Oh my god. Oh. Oh, there's the wealthy lawyer. That was the kind of palate cleanser you need after watching some stupid jackass talk about socialism and how important it would be for America. And see him get run out by the very people that he's trying to pretend like he's championing. Oh, beautiful. Anyway, that'll do it for today, I guess. Sorry for, I know, I got carried away on this one. I apologize. But man, I've been sitting on this for days now, and the other one I've been sitting on for just about as long. So next show we do, luckily, I can at least say I'm definitely going to be doing the show on that, because some interesting stuff came out in this interview, and it's I'd say it's pretty important to talk about, because well, we'll get to that when we actually get to the video. But you know, obviously, you know, I just want to say this last thing, and then I'll cut out. Obviously, I mean, I don't live in New York. I have no say over who they elect for their representatives, and it's New York. They're gonna represent, most likely, the leftist candidates, regardless, because the people who are blue, no matter who, are going to keep voting that way, regardless, because they have no interest in trying to find out the reality of the situation. They still have a, you know, I've got a family that was traditionally pretty consistently left, and it wasn't until I started talking about this stuff amongst my own family that some of them have kind of opened their horizons to the idea that, wow, actually, yeah, maybe things are different, and to their horror, they may be some of the most offended, most upset by the way that these people are, what they're actually doing than anybody else that is talking about these things. Why? Well, the reality is, you can either face up to the fact, and there's no shame in it. There's nothing wrong with it in admitting that you were lied to, you fell for it, and you can't believe that someone would do this. But because, look, they wouldn't be doing what they were doing if it wasn't effective. This wouldn't be their strategy if it didn't bring results. You know, if it wasn't effective, they wouldn't be doing it. So you can't fault yourself for believing what you believed was true. And it hasn't really changed my outlook on morality or on my real core beliefs very much, to recognize that one party has been full of shit all this time. the only thing that can take a hit is your own ego if you are, for whatever reason, so self-conscious about the idea that you can be wrong sometimes and you don't like to admit it. And I just don't think most people are like that, but to the people that are, they're never going to see the reality, and they're never really going to care about the reality until it actually comes knocking on their door, and then maybe they'll care. But the fact of the matter is that, there's not any harm. This is why it's so ridiculous about the voter ID stuff. There's no harm in verifying the truth. So when when something like this comes around, it does present an opportunity for people to try to persuade those that are convinced by this kind of thing to just read into, from an unbiased source, not sources that are on your side, not sources that are on the other side. Try to find a source. You'll find something. When it comes to history, there are sources. There are sources that are out there and are basically they can kind of seem boring sometimes, but they do get to the heart of the matter and the unfiltered chain of events of what really took place and the reasons why, because those things are usually known through people's various writings, and it's not uncommon for people to have, especially in the time of the finding, to have memorialized things by writing them down and keeping notes and keeping journals and keeping documents and all kinds of things that are personal references to events that were important. And once you see all the stuff, it adds up to a hell of a lot of evidence that suggests that, there was, I think I talked about this last time, there was something on Glenn Beck where he was showing this early draft of the Constitution, and it goes back to what I was saying about early colonial America when the British were about to arrive and the revolution was about to start, for officially, and this early version of the Constitution was written because at the time the founders really did believe, they didn't want slavery to be a part of the New World, and like I said, that was something they did not want to be a part of, that's formalized in the Constitution, which is why you don't see that when they passed the bills to free slaves and end the practice, they didn't have to overturn any existing laws except for formalities based on when it comes to things like the 3/5 compromise, which once again, that was based on the idea that they did not want people who were not considered full citizens by the fact that they weren't able to vote or be represented by anyone. They didn't want them to be counted in the census. That was the point of their demand, and the slave owners demanded, yes, we should have them count, because they wanted more people that they could vote for that would be in the House of Representatives based on their population. They wanted the slaves to count, which would have been completely barbaric for them to allow that on top of them being enslaved. So the compromise they came to was the reality that they had to do something to include them in some way. So it would be 3/5 of an individual to be counted for each person who was enslaved, and that way it calmed the South down enough to where they would be participating in the Revolutionary War, but they wouldn't be getting the benefit of fully represented people that weren't able to actually vote for their representation in Congress. And then, like I said, immediately afterward, there was it was almost a constant debate that had been happening since the time of the founding to through the Revolution all the way up until the point of the Civil War on this issue of slavery. It wasn't something that was intended to be part of the New World, and yet because of the fact that when it came to the New World and the South was so in favor of it, they had to figure out a way to win the Revolutionary War so that they could free the slaves, and that was kind of the idea that was baked into it in the first place. So this idea that there was all this racism that existed, go and look at the early writings for the Constitution, and look at, in particular, Jefferson's philosophy on it, and Hamilton as well. Look at what they had to say about when it came to owning men as property and that concept. It was not something they were it was not something they supported at all. It was something they absolutely did not believe in. But you know, when you look back through history, sometimes things are not as clear-cut and easy as you would like them to be. And because that happened, that doesn't mean that this entire country was founded on this irredeemable belief of owning people as slaves. That's not even close to what the country was founded on, as people proclaim so assuredly today. But once again, these are people that know nothing at all about what they're talking about. They're repeating what they have been told, and you know, repetition is one of those things that is convincing by itself. So if you hear something over and over and over and over and over again, it doesn't matter how valid it is. If you've heard it that many times, it becomes far more believable. So you know, when it comes to this issue, they're wrong about everything. They're wrong about this too, and it's not for the betterment of the country. It's not for the betterment of anything. It's because they're angry, and you know, you see this with events like Black Lives Matter's riots. You see it with so many events as of late, trying to murder our president over and over and over again now, that their personal grievance is cause to destroy the country. These are sick people, and this is what they want. That is something that absolutely, on that merit alone, needs to be recognized and pushed back against as vigorously as possible. And the sooner people wake up to that, the better. Anyway, that'll do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I also very much appreciate the subs that have been coming in. Man, new people almost every stream on Rumble. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that one. I will see you as soon as possible. I'm really sorry for the long time periods in between streams, but I will do my best to get that next one out. I really want to get that one out with Rupert Lowe and what's going on in Europe, so in England specifically. So I will try to be back. Today is Friday. I would love to say tomorrow, but in all likelihood it's more like going to be Monday. But I'll try to make it Sunday if I can. So and hopefully there's no more surprises. But either way, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Peace out.
In 5, 4, 3. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.